Hey guys, I'm Nina.
And I'm Randa.
And I'm Dr. Leo Venus.
Our special guest, we have a vegan doctor for you guys.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, so he also has a YouTube channel. So after you guys are done watching this video, make sure you check him out, subscribe to him, and give this video a thumbs up for vegan doctors who are 26.
Who are the same age as us. That's crazy.
Let's first just start off. What made you go vegan? How did you discover it?
Yeah, so that was actually a pretty long story, but it was basically an ex-girlfriend of mine introduced me to the concept, and I had never heard of it before. Like everyone else, I thought it was kind of a strange kind of hippie thing.
Right.
But we watched a few documentaries, and I was already doing my bachelor's degree in bioengineering, so I was already introduced to the scientific method, research, critiquing papers, and statistics, all that boring, nerdy stuff.
I love it too.
Yeah. So we were watching the documentaries, and I just thought it looked so professional, it looked so proper. And as a scientist, I just couldn't help but think, if this is really true, like I have to check it out. I have to read more about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went through the research and I read more and more. And the more I read, the more I realized this is, actually a movement with a ton of good science behind it. It's not just, and when I say just, that's how I thought back then. It's not just the ethics and, the trees hugging hippies or whatever people think when they think vegan, right?
I'm into that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I always say, like, now I think the ethics is probably the most important reason to do it. But at that time, the science is what pulled me in.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, I decided straight away to go on my everyday life, go vegan, plant-based. But then
quit cold turkey?
Yeah, but I still made exceptions when I was at families or parties and stuff like that. But then maybe a year in, I watched Earthlings. I got more into the ethics, and I was like, zero.
Right.
Gotcha.
You were 100% in.
Yeah.
Did you find that there was any difficult transitions going vegan?
So I think we were pretty lucky in that my family has always been pretty health conscious. So even though we always ate quite a bit of meat and fish, half Brazilian, so barbecue is like a religion over there. So every Saturday was barbecue, every Sunday was seafood. But we always grew up with a lot of fruit, a lot of rice, beans, legumes, salads, stuff like that. So we always had a relatively healthy diet growing up. We never had a lot of candy, soda, stuff like that. So for me, the transition was actually pretty easy. Yeah.
Did you feel any different once going vegan or the same?
And did you feel any pressure as a man? Because you know how there's kind of a stigma for men to be vegan?
A little bit at first. And I have to say, John was already kind of big and strong back then. I was way skinnier.
John is his bodybuilding brother.
Exactly. He's taught me everything.
Putting a photo.
So yeah, basically I did feel like, maybe this is going to be an issue, and protein deficiency is going to kick in, and I'm going to lose all my gains or whatever. And I have to say, I actually did have a little bit of an issue for the first few months, just because I was figuring stuff out. I wasn't, sure how to eat it. Whenever you're trying something new, there's a lot of ways you can mess up, right? Because you're not used to it. So that did happen for a few months where I was actually losing strength, and I was losing a bit of muscle mass maybe even. But I was just so focused on eating nothing but carbs. That was what I was doing back then. And I wasn't including a lot of healthy fats. I wasn't including very high protein foods. And I was training. On top of that, and this is another thing, right? Like the criteria for what's good depends on a person's individual situation. I was training like a maniac. I was in the gym every day, and then I was doing athletics. I was doing sprinting, and so I was training basically twice a day.
Wow.
And then eating like almost nothing but fruits. So
you'll burn that up pretty quick.
Exactly. So but I kept trying different things and reading, and the more I learned, the easier it became. And since I figured it out back then, I've been constantly getting stronger and putting on more muscle. So it's been very, very good.
Now we eat the oats.
Yeah. No grains, no gains.
We should dive into this because it's
Mental
irrelevant. No, I was going to talk about, what are your thoughts on Corona? Are you concerned?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to ask that question.
Your favorite question, Corona.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a medical point of view, it is a serious, like in terms of the spread, it's a very, it's very contagious, and it's already a pandemic. It's all over the place. But in terms of the perception of the mainstream, the media and whatever people are thinking of it, it's completely off. So,
really,
it's not as dangerous as people think. We're really talking it's a very contagious. So you're going to have a huge number of people. And, if you're, again, it's a misconnect between reliable source of information versus what people are talking about, right? So the media nowadays, unfortunately, talks in terms of the research, and the accurateness is very unreliable. So when they're putting statistics up at you and they're throwing these numbers at you, they're not actually reflective of what's going on. So a lot of times...
But couldn't it be more? Like if they're putting up like 4,000 deaths, like it could be 10,000 because, right?
Well,
Or it could
I
be
mean,
more or less.
technically it could, but
More
it's
people
more,
could have it that
it's-
don't know.
Yeah, the way I view it is way more likely that people who get severely ill actually get tested and go to the hospital
Right.
and get tested, whereas most people who get it have
just
nothing
pass it.
severe. They just either
Right.
are no symptoms or they just have a light cold.
Tom Hanks said it's like the normal flu.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
his
So for
post.
most people, that's the case, and it's not a problem. So
Interesting.
really, what we're worried about is the immunocompromised people who don't
Yeah.
have a very strong immune system and older people. But for healthy people, it's no big deal. There's been
Really?
yeah. I mean, if you look at SARS,
Wow.
MERS, Ebola, there's so many other viral infections which are
Ebola? Oh, Ebola's bad.
way,
I know
way,
all
way,
about that.
way worse, way worse.
I know. all
This
about
is
that.
it's really just because it's so contagious and spreading all over.
Right.
Yeah.
And really you're looking at again the vulnerable population. But yeah, again, these people, I always say these people are vulnerable to coronavirus, but they're also vulnerable to every single other infection out there. It's not just coronavirus. They're just at risk for
Because it's
infections.
contagious.
Yeah, and in hospitals we treat these people, especially we have them in isolation, because we don't want them to get not just coronavirus but everything else
Yeah.
as well.
I guess
So-
I heard why it's so serious though is because it's so contagious
Mm-hmm.
that if so many people get it who need that care, there won't be enough space, and that's
Yeah.
what why people are freaking out.
Yeah, and that I think is one of the problems with the panic, right? This mainstream hysteria that's going
Yeah.
on around Corona is because so many people think they're gonna die and freak out and panic and go to the emergency room. They take up beds, they take up resources, medications, and the people who are actually severely ill
Need it.
are not getting the treatment that they need because all the systems are overloaded. So it'd actually be way safer if we all just took a step back and relaxed,
Calm
and then
down.
only if you really need it, then you go and get the stuff. But again, people buying masks, there's no organization out there that's recommending people buy masks or use
Yeah.
masks for preventing the contagious effects. And stocking up on medications, all this kind of stuff is completely unhelpful for the people who really actually need the help.
Right.
Oh.
That makes sense. So what would you say to someone who wants to go vegan but is concerned about protein deficiency?
What does the doctor think?
Yeah, so it's such a common thing, right? It's just disconnect between science, facts, and common knowledge of what people believe. And in the scientific field, there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that protein is a non-issue. It's so easy to get. As long as you're eating enough calories and you're eating it from a variety of foods, you're not gonna get a protein deficiency. It's impossible. I've
Yeah.
never, in all the hospitals I've been to, hundreds of patients I've seen, thousands, I've never even heard of a protein
Right.
deficiency
It's
case.
if you're
Like,
getting
it's-
enough calories, you're gonna get enough protein.
But
Exactly.
a fiber
Exactly.
deficiency, have you seen that?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
almost every single person.
Mhm. Isn't that crazy? I heard, who was it that said that almost 95% of Americans are fiber deficient?
It was
Yeah.
Rip Esselstyn.
Was it Rip Esselstyn?
Yeah. There's basically studies looking at the minimum requirement. So it's not even the optimal requirement, but the minimal
Right.
requirement.
Which is
And-
crazy because
yeah.
if you think of your body like a river, I'm gonna get hippie with it. A free flowing
for it.
river is better than like a stagnant water that where bacteria and
yeah.
stuff grows, and it's the same thing in your body. When things aren't free flowing, that's when things
just a river
grow.
of organs.
Oh yeah.
That's when things grow and cancer and all the bad stuff you don't want,
Yeah.
or your face gets clogged and all
I'll
that.
I'll tell you a funny story. Maybe not so funny, but a fascinating story. And that's
Yes.
there's actually a patient that I saw a case of who had something called hepatic encephalopathy, where your liver isn't working properly, and so these chemicals build up in your blood that aren't supposed to be building up, and so you get confusion. You start losing track of where you are, what time it is, who
Wait,
you are, everything.
this sounds like me in the middle of the night. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Maybe I have some vegan liver damage going on.
Kidding.
But,
I don't drink.
But basically, what they did for this patient is one of the things that helps a lot for people, because this guy was post surgery, so he wasn't passing stool. So basically, they just threw a ton of laxatives at him,
Oh.
and once he was able to go to the
Release.
toilet,
Shit. Yeah.
yeah, within minutes he started coming back and being able to
Oh,
know where he
interesting.
was and stuff. Yeah,
Wow.
so
it's like that is actually affecting your mental state. So
Exactly,
probably people
yeah,
who
yeah.
have a little bit of cloggage, who knows what's that doing? What that's doing
it has
to them
a
mentally.
actual biochemical
Well,
effect.
yeah.
And it does affect your mood as well, obviously. If
Right.
You're stopped up. I have a song for
Interesting.
us.
What?
Beans,
The magical fruit.
The more you eat, the more. Do you know this?
No.
Oh my gosh! Okay, we're gonna teach you beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot, the more you fart, the better you feel. So beans in every meal. So that's a good doctor song, I think.
Yeah, I should start incorporating that into all hospitals.
What is your training routine like?
Yeah, so I mean,
Training for doctors or for
No, I meant for fitness.
oh, got you. So, I mean, it's changed a lot over the years depending on what I've been doing, because ever since I stopped, basically when I was growing up, it was all about soccer or football. It's really football. Soccer just here in North
Football.
America.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But once I got to college, I decided, you know what, because I had aspirations of becoming a pro soccer player up until I was maybe 14, 15. And then once I decided not to.
well,
I
you
just
are
thought-
Brazilian.
Yeah, exactly.
sense.
So that's the main sport over there. Yeah. So, you know, from 4 to 18, soccer was basically all I did. And then once I went to college, I decided, you know, life is too short to just do one sport. So I decided to do a ton of different sports. So I did athletics, like I mentioned. So I was doing sprinting, long jump, high jump, javelin throw, shot put, all the kind of decathlon sports, right? And then I did climbing. I did, you know, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing. Ballet?
Have you done ballet?
No, that's the
Well,
next on my list.
That's on your list.
So so basically, depending on what I was doing, it's changed a lot. But you know, now that I've kind of stopped doing so many other sports, it's gone more into the bodybuilding kind of training, which just consists of mostly at least 6 times a week at the gym, and I'm doing push-pull leg split. So one day I'll do push, which is chest, shoulder, tricep. Pull will be bicep, back, and a little bit of the posterior aspect of your deltoid, so your shoulder, and then legs obviously is
How long are the sessions?
Usually I try to keep them as close to an hour as possible, but it often goes to maybe 1.5.
So it's like basically an hour to an hour and a half of straight lifting. You do you also do cardio as well?
No.
So we got to join you with the arms, and you got to join us in the cycle and running.
If I ever do cardio, like for the last couple of years, I'll do maybe once a month or so. I'll go sprinting. So I'll do
That's fine.
5 to 10 sprints of like 5
get
to 10
that heart rate
seconds.
up.
Yeah.
Wow.
So clearly you're a jock. How does that, like, how did people treat you being like a medical doctor in medical school? Because, you know, there's that stereotype where, oh, like athletes just aren't as smart, but clearly you're both. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
Butter him up. Butter him. Vegan,
man.
butter him up.
I like this podcast. I have to do more of these. I mean, it's changed over time, because like I said, when I first went vegan, I was actually quite skinny, and I've been kind of constantly growing throughout the years. The more I focus on weightlifting rather than, you know, the other things. But so one thing I did notice actually is when back in the day when I said I was vegan, people would say, oh, how do you get your protein, right? Whereas nowadays when I say it, people go, well, obviously you get enough protein. So, you know, it's kind of changed the dynamic in the conversation.
Did people treat you differently because you're like a jock medical student? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the stereotype is it's a nerdy person who's in medical school, but like you have the brains as well as being a jock. Maybe that stereotype isn't as much where you're from, but in America, it's a big stereotype.
And even like, I can't find anyone.
That's not what I'm
That's
saying.
a doctor that works out.
No,
That's what I've been looking for.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, like, there's even studies that show before athletes take tests, or if they see like athletes don't do as well, like they don't do as well on tests because it's a stereotype.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I haven't.
You don't have that.
I haven't really noticed it.
Oh,
at all,
interesting.
But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I definitely do notice that people treat you different when you're fit looking, but I haven't really thought of it related to school before.
Oh, interesting.
No.
Okay.
Are people nicer to you being fitter? Or are
Well,
they more
especially-
scared?
Probably depends on the person.
Yeah, and the
girls are
gender as well.
nicer, the
Exactly.
men are-
Yeah. Well, the men, no, the
Depends
men.
on the man.
Yeah, they you know, ask for training tips and stuff like that a lot.
Oh.
Yeah, stuff like that.
I gotta make this guy my friend so he doesn't steal my girl. Just kidding. That's horrible. Kidding.
That's the LA mentality coming out of Randa right there.
Honestly.
We don't do that in Norway. We're very good. We're very
Good.
good people.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. You're from Norway and Brazil, so you speak many different languages.
Yep.
When you dream or when you think, do you have a certain language you think in?
I have never been able to answer that question, because for me,
Okay.
I don't really think in words that much.
That
I
makes
think more
sense.
in like
Images?
yeah, in like situations. Like if I think of food, I'll think of the image of that food. I won't really think of the word of oatmeal or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because I'm weird or if that's normal.
No,
but
I'm sure the language has something to do with that. Because have you read about the internal monologue?
No.
Have you heard about that?
No.
So you probably don't. Do you have an internal monologue, meaning like almost like a person narrating your life? Like you're in bed and you're like, remember when you said this, this, and this, and you're like almost hearing a voice in your head?
No.
See, I knew he wouldn't have it.
What?
I knew it.
I have
You're
that
rare.
all the time.
Really?
Yeah, most
that-
people have an internal dialogue.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but I did some research, and I think people who speak more languages just think more visually, or
Okay.
I just think a little bit different, but it's the same outcome.
I mean, I think of words when I'm thinking of a conversation, and then of course, depending on what conversation, what situation I'm thinking about, then, you know, if I'm talking to people who I usually talk in English, then I'll think in English. And then if
Right.
I'm talking to
So you
someone
just
who's
adapt.
Norwegian, yeah.
So when you read a book, do you have like a voice reading out loud the words?
No.
Really?
What?
You're rare.
Okay.
Really?
Yes. That's rare.
I don't really have much of a filter, but when I do, I'll be like, I'm not gonna say that in my head.
Okay.
Like, don't say that, don't say
like,
that.
Speak it.
When
speak to
I
myself in my
read,
head.
like literally, I'm reading a book. I'm like reading the words like the blah 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 blah. Like there's like a
Yeah.
voice in my head, like me
Really?
speaking.
Huh.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
knew you
strange.
wouldn't- I knew you
that's
didn't
so
have it.
strange. Well, how did you know
And
that?
because I did some research, and I feel like people who have this kind of thinking
Yeah.
style that you do can read really quickly, which is also why you retain information.
Well, maybe I'm super rare then, because I don't hear it and I read slow.
Maybe
Yeah.
you're just a superhero.
I don't know. I
A
just
super slow hero.
a guess.
Super duper pooper.
We're moving on to the dating questions because that's
no.
what this podcast is all about. My question is, would you only date a vegan girl? Is that a top, like a deal breaker?
People
she
ask
needs
this
to be vegan
to us all
yeah,
the
that's what I'm
time.
asking.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, definitely not. I mean, for me, it's like,
It's about the person.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I definitely don't think I'd probably marry someone who isn't vegan, but I could definitely date someone and then,
Right.
you know, give that a shot. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we date people that aren't vegan.
No, yeah, I ultimately
get hate
care
for that.
about the person and what they have to offer. But I obviously want to date somebody who I feel like gets me. You know, who at least respects it or is
Right.
like interested in reading.
I
books
don't. I
about
would
it.
never want to date
I
someone
don't need to
that made me
change
feel
someone, though.
uncomfortable for the way that I am. Just
Yeah.
like so, I'm not going to make them feel
I've been-
uncomfortable for the way they are.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been in positions where not necessarily the person I was dating, but like maybe their
Someone in
parents
their
or
family.
someone in their family made me feel uncomfortable, and that was
yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't like this. So
Well, I've had people in my own family make me feel that way. So,
Oh.
yeah.
honestly, I feel like that's better
Family
than at least
drama,
your significant
yeah.
other.
But I mean,
Yeah.
you guys have everyone in your family basically
Yeah,
vegan, right? Yeah.
exactly.
So that's easier.
What is the best thing one can do for their mental health?
That's a great question.
Because there's a lot, but
Yeah,
what do you think is the
so-
best?
Again, it's a combination of so many things. I would say being aware of the fact that human beings are, for the most part, subconscious animals. So we're not these super logical, all the time conscious, you know, super intellectual people who
I
everyone-
cannot believe a man just
Seriously?
said that we are not logical. Because I cannot tell you how many men I've dated that are like, I like to call myself a logical person.
and you're emotional.
And you're more of
It's
like a feeler. I'm
you're
literally
also
like,
emotional. You're
what
following
is
your feelings.
what is wrong with you? Anyway, so that was amazing. Continue.
Plus points. No, I mean, like, yeah, I used to think that way too. I used to think, you know, I'm a very logical person.
Men are more logical than women.
Yeah. You
No,
think?
that's a
I'm kidding.
stereotype.
It's a stereotype. I don't
Yeah.
think that at all.
Yeah, I think it's different. Like, there's so many different ways of being logical and different ways of being
Yeah.
emotional. And of course, there are differences between men and women. But you know, I would say even myself, when I used to think I was super logical, I was still doing a lot of things for completely emotional reasons without
Yeah.
even knowing about it, right? So it's
Wise
really
man over
That's
here.
exactly
Wise
what I
man.
would want to say to this guy that would say that. I'd be like,
Like,
I'm
you're
just
still
not even
following
going
your
to say
emotions.
anything.
Yeah, but you know, it's a lack of awareness. Like
Yeah.
we're not taught psychology in school. We're
Yeah.
not, unless you're doing actually, you know, trying to learn about human psychology, you're not going to be aware of this. And if you're not aware of your subconscious nature, then you can't do anything to change it, right? So yeah, when it comes to, I would say, vast majority of people, emotions come first. Human beings are emotional animals, and so being aware of all of these, you know, processes, all these patterns that are happening, reflecting on them, and then seeing, I wouldn't even say good and bad because I don't like, you know, assigning judgment to it, but I would say unhelpful versus more helpful psychological patterns, and then trying to fix the unhelpful ones through things like affirmations, through things like visualization, you know,
Meditation.
exactly, all that kind of stuff. And you know, CBT
'Cause
if you need it as well, if you need help.
It's funny
professional
because
help.
we can follow our subconscious thoughts, but sometimes our subconscious thoughts isn't what leads us to the happiest place.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like for instance, if I had if you had a great girlfriend or I had an amazing boyfriend and I'm like using my subconscious thoughts of, oh, I see that guy over there is
And
like
he's
amazing
so
and
hot.
he's hot and he's looking
Like,
at me
oh,
and
what
it's
a
like,
fantasy. But then
oh,
it's like
am I
you're
gonna
giving
go
up-
like
yeah.
go off with this hot guy and
Who
leave-
might not treat you
who
right.
would treat me like shit, and when I have like all other also hot guy who's like really nice. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be going off of like a subconscious, like get the best DNA, but it might not actually make me the happiest.
Yeah.
That's my point. I would never do that. I'm just using it as an example.
Exactly.
I would never do that.
Awareness.
That's funny. Yeah. So just to answer your question, then I guess for me, I would say number one, awareness of your subconscious, your subconscious nature and the patterns that are going on every single day. Number two is optimism. A lot of people think, oh, I'm an optimist, I'm a pessimist, but it's actually been shown scientifically that people who are nurture optimistic ways of thinking actually have better health outcomes, and that this is actually something that's really, really important. And then the third thing I would say is actually being social.
Yes.
Again, introvert versus
Get you out of your
extrovert.
head. I think being social is like meditation. Just you feel calm and at peace and happy.
Yeah. Again, we might not understand the exact reasons why these things work, but when you're looking at the biggest investigations on psychological well-being and happiness, the number one predictor in the world for someone being unhappy is actually a lack of human relationship.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So the number one predictor of whether or not you're going to be happy is not the amount of money, it's not the amount of the success or whatever. It's actually having real relationships with real people.
Yeah.
And that's the issue I have a little bit with social media as well.
Yeah.
Even though I'm on social media and you guys are on social media, is it's so easy for people to, it should be paradoxically, it should be called unsocial media in some ways, because instead of having the real interactions with people, a lot of times we're just sitting by ourselves on our phone.
Yeah.
And we're actually separating ourselves more and more from other people.
Listen to this podcast with your friend is what we're saying.
Should just be called like entertainment from your screen. It's not social.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there's so many good things about social media. There's so many good things about internet, and being able to help people through these platforms is an absolute luxury. And I'm so thankful that we have this opportunity, but it definitely has to come with a word of warning that it's so easy to get into and use it incorrectly. If you're using it for learning, if you're using it for things that are moving you in a positive direction, it's a beautiful thing. But if you're using it to compare yourself to others and you're using it as a kind of almost like comfort food, but like comfort entertainment instead of actually going out and meeting people and actually having experiences in your own life. And I feel the same with gaming. I used to be a big gamer until I went to med school, and then I quit because I just calculated one day. I was like, oh, I've spent thousands of hours on this one game alone. If I think about all the games I've played, it's an insane amount of time. And you think about all the things that I could have done with that time if I had just used it in a more productive way. I think my philosophy is always trying to align yourself with what's natural for your species, right? So being outside, being with other people, we're social animals from the millions of years of evolution, as far back as we can actually historically date our existence. We've always been a social animal of herds, right? We've always been in groups of 50 to 100 to 200 people, right? It's not really an introvert versus extrovert thing. It's really everyone needs to have sort of social contact. So anyways, I think that was a very long answer, but
I love it.
Awareness of your subconscious thoughts, being optimistic, and then taking care of your social life
and sleeping enough, right?
Sleep. That's something I always take as the holistic approach, right? So taking care of all the aspects that have been shown by the scientific literature to improve your long-term health. And a lot of people think, oh, as long as I eat healthy, I'll be healthy, or as long as I exercise, I'll be healthy.
Gotta do it
You have to do it all.
So it's really diet, exercise, sleep, relaxation, mental health, being out in nature, all these things really, really do make a big impact. So try to incorporate everything, really.
Love it. I agree with it all.
Are we ending on that note?
Yeah. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and follow Leo. We're going to link his Instagram as well as his YouTube in the description box. Thank you so much for jumping on with us today.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah.
Wait. Mom wanted us to ask you this question.
Oh,
What?
Okay.
She wanted us to ask if you're going to get married and have a kid soon like your brother.
Well, there's a lot of, Catherine was telling me like, oh no, Noah's not going to have any cousins. So there's pressure. There's pressure on right now. But yeah, I definitely do want to have kids and everything, but everything in its right time, I think.
Yeah.
We're young. We got time. Yeah. Thanks guys for tuning in to Somewhat Relatable. Don't forget to hit that follow button. We will leave Leo in the description on this Spotify so you can go check him out. He's awesome. Thanks for being with us, and
Thank you.
we will see you guys next week. Am I right?
Yeah.
Bye.